A very good morning, everyone. I, Ankit Trivedi, on behalf of the International Center for Automotive Technology, would want to welcome you all to this webinar on cybersecurity in automotive applications. And both our esteemed speakers have joined. Good morning, Joshi sir. Good morning, Ronak.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Ankit.
Yeah, hi. Good morning. So, as we all know that cybersecurity, as we move forward into the automotive advancements, vehicles are more and more becoming software defined. So cybersecurity becomes more pertinent. Without taking much time, I would want to start with our first speaker for the day, Dr. Madhusudan Joshi. He is the head of technology and business in ICAT and has a vast experience in automotive cybersecurity, cryptography, automotive electrics and electronics. And he has been instrumental in setting up pioneering facilities, testing, validation, equipment, and he's also a part of a lot of regulatory and compliance related committees, while also on governing bodies that uh, are key to pilot projects in this domain. So, not taking much time, I'll hand it over to Joshi sir for his talk.
Yeah, good morning to all of you. Good morning, Ronak. Uh, actually, I have no structured presentation, but I would like to speak as an introductory remark about automotive cybersecurity, the technology, regulatory, and market perspective, trying to cover the global and the Indian aspects of automotive cybersecurity. Actually, as we are witness to a lot of technological advancements in automotive, the growing connectivity in the vehicle being almost turning into an IoT device, a lot of V2X communication kind of thing happening, ADAS coming in a big way, and we are also talking about autonomous vehicles. Now, to say that these technologies are actually rather picking very rapidly, and almost each car being sold has some element of it. The moment we enter into this domain, there's always a possibility and rather threat that some data may be lost or stolen. Somebody can take a control of your vehicle remotely. Someone can cause disruptions to the normal operations of the vehicle, and there could be intellectual property breaches also. So, in view of this, the cyber security becomes a very important and a critical parameter from the safety, privacy, reliability point of view. So everyone wants to have a car which is safe, reliable, and all of us would like to, drive in an ideal scenario. Now, since all these technologies are picking up, and we are also talking about, a lot of over-the-air software updates being frequently done on the programs which are running in the ECUs of the vehicle, or maybe in the navigation system or the infotainment system, or maybe the body control ECUs, etc., etc. So with these all these features, it is important that somebody should be the custodian to take care of the aspects which are related to cybersecurity, and that is how the regulatory landscape has been thought of, and many regulatory forums are working on this very closely, especially UNEC WB29. They have already rolled out two standards for cybersecurity management system and software uh, software update management system. And there are standards like ISO, SAE 21434. Then NHTSA has also rolled out some regulation. There is a European GDPR and cyber security directives. China has also rolled out uh, something called new data security law. And as you know that in India, we are also trying to work a bit. We have, on the lines of UNEC 155 and 156, we have rolled out two standards as AI standards. And also the data privacy bill or the personal data protection bill is on the table and it's yet to be converted into a law, but it is being discussed very seriously. And believe me, every alternate day we are receiving some communication from Ministry of Home Affairs or maybe Ministry of IT, from Ministry of Transport, from Department of Telecommunication with regard to cybersecurity. So I can see that there is some buzz about this cybersecurity in India as well. Now, so with talking about all these aspects, so as far as Indian technology trends are concerned, we are talking about a lot of connected mobility nowadays, right? There is a rising adoption of telematics and IoT in the vehicles. Electric vehicles are being sold in a very big way, and most of the electric vehicles are also, communicating with the backends, with the servers, etc., from and a lot of data being sent to and fro. Uh, there is something called charging infrastructure, which is also a connected device for many reasons, and there are payments being collected through these charging infrastructure. Then we have a lot of other initiatives being taken by startups and all coming up with a lot of connected features. So with all these topics being quite common and quite visible nowadays in all the vehicles and different segments of vehicles, so it becomes very, very important that cyber security need to be addressed in a very uh, systematic way. Uh, as I mentioned, that India has already adopted two European regulations and converted into AIS regulations, and strictly in line with the UNEC 155 and 156. Then the Bharat NCAP ratings, which we have introduced recently, also includes some consideration related to cybersecurity. And the data protection bill is already on the table in the parliament, data privacy, personal data protection. So I think soon it will also see the light of the day and it will become a law. So with all these initiatives, I mean, it's a good scenario that there is a parallel working on the technology regulations, and there's a focus from the government also. So this is the right way to do any such technology adoption, and nothing should be left behind. Regulations should go hand in hand with the technology, and market adoption should happen with the same pace. Of course, there are some gaps at times, but by and large, I think we are treading a right way. And also, since government is also seriously talking about the smart cities, intelligent transportation system adoption, etc., in the public transport, so this particular aspects of cybersecurity becomes really important. And recently, there have been discussions on toll collection through GPS-based systems. So we are talking about a lot of transactions happening. Uh, I mean, billions of transactions happening every month. So with all this, the importance of cybersecurity is actually very, very high, and we need to give a due consideration to this particular topic. And uh, discussions and deliberations like this would actually definitely play a very, very important role in setting up the future course of action. There are a lot of companies, big and small, a lot of startups which are working on cybersecurity. We keep on interacting with these players on various at various forums, and it's very heartening to see that a quite big amount of progress is being done by these companies, small and big companies, in this area of cybersecurity. Now, the challenges, uh, if I talk about challenges, there is the, of course, when it comes to automotive, the supply chain is very complex and fragmented. And now the adoption of cybersecurity cannot happen at the level of OEMs, as we all understand. It has to be all along the supply chain. And since the supply chains in automotive are kind of very complicated sometimes, so that is one of the challenge I see, that how it will be done. But as we are trying to, create more and more awareness about this topic, and more or more tier one, tier two level companies are actually trying to participate in these such discussions. So it becomes easier for the industry to adopt such kind of intervention. Then also the implementation of cybersecurity, at least at this point of time, is an expensive affair. It's a very cost intensive you know technology, because it requires a lot of preparation on the side of the OEMs and their supply chain. Involves a great bit of cost in terms of training, in terms of uh, redesigning the systems from that standpoint of making them cyber secure. Then integration, testing, validation at the component level, at the vehicle level. All this will require a lot of cost. Then the other side, the dark side of cybersecurity, unfortunately, had educated and very talented players. We call as them as hackers and all. So they are also very educated. So we have educated enemy on the other side. We should not forget that. So they are coming up with new ideas, new attack vectors being launched each and every day. So that is something which is very dynamic scenario, which need to be addressed on a continual basis. There's always a problem with the skill part. Skilling in this particular domain at this point of time is not that high. So we also need to create a great big pool of people who are conversant with this technology, and they are able to handle such problems and interventions. Then one big challenge that comes, we have already mentioned about it, that technology, innovation, compliance, standardization, all should go hand in hand. But normally that's an ideal scenario, but doesn't happen that way. Technology normally is much ahead of regulations and standards. But there has to be a balance between all these topics of innovation, compliance, standardization, technology adoption. So these are the primary challenges which, in my opinion, need to be given a due consideration. Now, what is the way forward then? So, as far as I'm concerned, I am very convinced that this cybersecurity adoption, cybersecurity implementation in the automotive scenario can be handled only when there is a collaborative approach between all the stakeholders, be it OEMs, tier one, tier two, test agencies, third parties, technology companies, all need to work together so that the problems are addressed, and the cost of adoption is not that high. If all interact together right from the design stage, then the possibility that a lot of extra effort which may be required otherwise can be reduced significantly. So collaborative approach amongst all the stakeholders is a very important and, uh, uh, critical aspect. And of course, we have to work on the standards. Standards also need to be, you know, um, evolved uh, with all the stakeholders consulting with each other, discussing with each other, which is generally the case. But sometimes some things can be done in silos that should be avoided as far as this particular aspect is concerned. Then, of course, government side has to be the government side has to support the adoption of this technology. They should try to, try to support the activities which helps to create the awareness about cybersecurity, automotive cybersecurity. Then, of course, there need to be some programs running about skilling because we will need a lot of people, a lot of trained resources to work on these topics. Of course, government should also encourage some public-private partnerships to, kind of accelerate the, the adoption of automotive cybersecurity. And I would like to summarize my discussions. Cybersecurity, in my opinion, cannot be an optional thing. It's, it has become a necessity and it has to be addressed that way. And the regulations are taking shape globally. India should also try to match the pace of these regulations because products cannot be different for India and for the global. And India being an emerging market, I mean, there's a big potential, of course, and there are big challenges also as far as the automotive cybersecurity is concerned. And last but not the least is that innovation, technology, and the regulation should go hand in hand and a collaborative approach amongst all the stakeholders will be very, very critical and will play a big role as far as automotive cybersecurity adoption is concerned. Thank you so much, and I'm open to discuss any questions if you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshi sir, for setting the tone and giving us all a perspective on how important cybersecurity is in automotive domain. Uh, from the audience, we have a question from Mr. Jitendra Pal. He says, how much and what impact can the new data protection bill have on the FDI in the automotive sector?
Personal data protection is something without which we can't address the automotive cybersecurity. As I mentioned to you in one or two examples, that very soon we will have a lot of payment, uh, you know, interfaces being created, a lot of digital payments happening at the toll gates, at the parking lots. Now, when you are trying to link a payment kind of thing with your vehicle, it will definitely have a lot of your personal data inside, right? It will have your information about your personal identification. It will have your banking details inside. It may have some other important personal information, your permanent account number, or maybe some other stuff. I don't know. So I cannot imagine that automotive cybersecurity being implemented in the automotive without having a very strong personal data protection bill in place. So it is one of the very strong pillars of implementation of automotive cybersecurity. We have to have a very strong, very robust personal data protection bill law in place while we are trying to adopt automotive cybersecurity. Is it okay, Ankit? Hello.
Joshi sir, we have one more question coming from Mr. Manoj. He's asking, when are we expecting to get AIS 189 and 190 rolled out for the Indian OEs?
It's already rolled out. It's already rolled out.
So I believe that answers your question. We can have more questions at the end of the session and probably get back to you through another medium. Thank you, Joshi sir, for that insightful talk. Going forward to our next speaker.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes, we
Ronak,
can
you're
hear you,
audible.
Ronak. Please go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let me turn on my camera so that you all can see me. Hello and good morning to everyone. I think before I even introduce myself, I think Dr. Joshi has already set the tone about the cybersecurity importance. And this is really a collaborative approach, and technology regulation and the amount of vulnerabilities we are looking needs to go hand on hand. So with that, let me just go ahead and share my screen. Let me know you all can see my screen.
Yes, it is.
Yes, Ronak, it's visible. Please go ahead.
I think I don't want to introduce myself, but I have been with the type approval, regulations, COP, cybersecurity and software domain since almost 20 years, and more on the cybersecurity and software since last 5 years. Just to share my personal and professional journey, I personally believe in the life is like a carousel where sometimes it goes ups and downs, but it always hold on and maybe make sure you hold on tight because you will enjoy the ride when you are on the carousel. So this is like ups and downs of the journey, but looking at starting with my born, 1984, I got born in India, grew up in a small town, spent all my childhood exploring nature and developing my passion for the outdoors. With the supportive parents, I discovered my love for machines, cricket, and music. Started playing drum at the very young age, which really helped me to strengthen my ability to focus and work on impulse controls and decision making skills. Completed my high school in 2001 and my bachelor's in mechanical engineering in 2005, which I have done a couple of projects, which is like manufacturing and design of vertical carousel machine for service industry, design for and manufacturing of the tricycle for special need people and specific toys related machines for cam and followers. And then did my apprenticeship with Inox India, which was producing the cryogenics equipment. And then in 2009, I finished my Master of Science in Manufacturing Management. And recently, 2 years back, I completed my advanced cybersecurity from Stanford University in US. If we talk about my professional journey, I joined General Motors India in 2005, and since then I am with GM and with different and various positions to 2005 to 2017 within the type approval and homologation activity. And then in 2018, I got moved to North America and US, which is a special assignment for me to help the US team here to start exploring export country regulations. And then I was localized here as a type approval certification engineer, and then got another opportunity to move to Canada for 1 year to introduce the conformity of production, post-production regulatory requirement, including the cyber security and data protection. And then since 2024, I am acting as engineering group manager for a type approval and certification regulation team. During all of this journey, I have a lot of exposure, international exposure, which is stationed me in terms of in China, Korea, Germany, Canada, and finally I'm in US. A couple of outstanding awards I have received professionally since 2009 to 2014. I'm also OPEX, Operation Excellence Master, and DFSS Black Belt. If you talk about my journey, I think I mentioned that it is all about type approval, certification, regulation, conformity of production, cybersecurity, software management, and innovative project. I have a passion about driving changes using the data and facts, and played a lot of roles outside of the engineering within the quality organization as well. I was also a lead in creation of SAE rulebook, I think in 2017-18 timeframe, where we have range extended electric vehicle. And then I personally like to listen music, traveling. I like to cook, play cricket, watch cricket, learn new technology, especially on artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies. Uh, Whenever I start my presentation, I generally start with either diversity, inclusion, and safety message. Today's discussion is more focused on automotive cybersecurity. So I would like to start my presentation with a brief safety message on automotive cybersecurity. Protect yourself on the road and online. Keep your car's software updated. Be cautious with connecting to the public Wi-Fi and report any suspicious activity to your car manufacturer. Your safety depends on robust automotive cybersecurity, which is really important. Couple of key points to consider when you own the vehicle: that make sure that you keep updating your software in your vehicle. Emphasize that importance of installing software updates promptly to patch vulnerabilities. When it comes to public Wi-Fi cautions, advise against connecting the public Wi-Fi networks while you are in a car. Suspicious activity reporting: encourage users to report any unusual behavior or potential security concerns to the manufacturer of the vehicle. Privacy and protection: mention that protecting personal information stored in the car is really crucial. I think Dr. Joshi also mentioned about we will have a lot of payment and gateway connected with our vehicle, which is really important to protect those information. Strong password, if applicable, recommend using a strong password for car related accounts. Don't just use 1234 or 0000 kind of passwords. And when it comes to physical security, remind all the drivers to secure their car keys and avoid leaving vulnerable, valuable things inside and visible inside the vehicles. Moving forward, I think as we all talk about cybersecurity, I think everyone might have a question about what is cybersecurity and how does it relate to the vehicle cybersecurity. So cybersecurity refers to the practice of protecting computer networks, programs, and data from unauthorized access, attacks, damages, or theft. It involves measures and technology designed to defend against a wide range of cyber threats, such as hacking, malware, phishing, and data breaches, ensuring the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the information. Cybersecurity encompasses various domains, including network security, application security, information security, and operational security. And it is crucial for individuals, organizations, and governments to safeguard their digital assets and maintain privacy in the digital world. Today, cybersecurity affects each one of us on a multitude of levels. Our professional work, our personal lives, even our vehicles depend on connectivity and technology that runs on a complex software. As information technology becomes increasingly integral part of our daily lives, our dependency on subsequent information system grows. In turn, we experience an increased in vulnerabilities and potential attacks against those systems. Cybersecurity rose out to necessity to protect the systems and the information contained within them. Applied to the vehicles, cybersecurity takes an even more important role. Systems and components that govern safety must be protected from harmful. So this is a basic, I think it's a long definition, but to give a more understanding, depth of the understanding of cybersecurity and what are the importance of the automotive cybersecurity, I would like to just cover this slide. I think we touch based on this smart mobility ecosystem. All of our as our automotive industry is expanding into a smart mobility ecosystem, you can see that there are a lot of, I think, system which has associated cyber actors, which is, for an example, infotainment, which is connected to your Wi-Fi, connected to your data plan, ADAS features, which is also like lane keep assist, auto emergency braking, connected to your sensors, your mirrors, your cameras, your lidars, radars. Vehicle communication, right now, I'm not sure how much progress we have with respect to vehicle versus vehicles to infrastructure communication. But when a vehicle has like an e-call system, or let's say EDR system, such as emergency calling system, in the event of the accident, the automatically system will call onto the backend server to the manufacturer's backend and inform them there is a threat or there is an accident. And when they immediately trigger the police car, or maybe a ambulance or a fire truck, depending upon the uh, impact which you had on the vehicle. There are also safety and security features connected via Bluetooth, and then also telematics. So, and I think right now there is a big buzz going on around the EVs, where we will have to charge our vehicle at any public charging stations, or any paid charging stations, which is also vulnerable to all these cybersecurity incidents. If you look at all this automotive smart mobility ecosystem, from the distribution perspective, 35% of the system now has telematics and application servers. 8% of them are infotainment system. If we have EV, if we're talking about EV charging infrastructure, 4% of them are associated with that. And there are a lot of automotive and smart mobility APIs, which we used in our smart mobility vehicles, which is about 12%. And then a lot of mobile application to remote start our vehicle, to turn on the HVAC system, to change the seat configuration. And then remote keyless entry is also 18% of the system. And then 16% of the system has ECUs and controllers. Looking at this distribution, what are the attack vectors? How much percentage of this distribution has a possibility for attack? And out of 35% of the telematics application, there are 30% chances of attacking those telematics system by the attackers. Similarly, if you look at all of the distribution, every one of this system has at least uh, a high probability of attack vectors if we don't have a appropriate cybersecurity considered into our smart mobility ecosystem. You can also see a lot of information available when you Google it, but automotive and smart mobility incidents are continues to grow. Between 2010 and 2023, there were approximately 1,500 cybersecurity incidents, especially for the automotive world. And in 2023 alone, around 300 incidents occurs. And then while in 2024, the number of incidents rose to approximately 450. If you look at the all of the smart mobility system, how's the distribution of these attacks, right? And you can see in the left that 36% of the attack was done by the white hat people. Just to give a perspective of white hat versus a black hat, the white hat people are really working towards the industry with the collaboration to make sure that to identify the vulnerabilities or threats prior to someone hack your system, and make sure that there is a already a patch or software update, or data is protected prior to the black hat people identify those gaps into your security system. Whereas black hat are always disruptive, and they try to do a malware, phishing, and a lot of scams. And look at that, 64% of attacks are done by black hat peoples. And the interesting facts here is that 95% of all these attacks are remote, and only 5% of them are physical. Another interesting statistics is 50% of the 2023 and 2024 incidents had the potential to impact thousands to millions of vehicles on ground, which is huge. Uh, very statistic informative information here at why cybersecurity is really important now, looking at all these trends. What will happen? Let's say if there is a cyber attack, what will happen on your business? A couple of things happen on your business. Number one is it definitely impact the vehicle safety. operation of the vehicle, and it will turn into the recalls. There will be a data and privacy breach into your vehicle in your information, which is stored into the vehicle database. Vehicle will be tapped and there will be a break-in on the vehicles. There will be services required, business disruption because of the cyber incidents. There will be a legal and regulatory compliance where they have to pay a lot of penalties to the government. And all the frauds, again, once the data is leaked, everyone has access to your data. And then ultimately it's a brand reputation. So this is huge impact once there is a cyber incident on any of the business. Couple of examples on the recent cybersecurity incidents. In June of 2023, a Taiwan-based Tier 2 company was hit by a ransomware attack, which is valued at $70 million, which threats to expose the sensitive information, personal sensitive information of the driver. There was been financial impact on a vulnerability affecting an EV fleet, which was estimated between 20 million and 40 million, including cost of the over-the-air update and recall and class action or lawsuit to those customers who is producing the vehicles into the EV fleet. A data breach in EV charging system resulted in financial loss between 35 million to 45 million, covering data breach cost and class action. A cyber attack on the CKD Global, a software provider which is serving over 15,000 car dealers, led to an estimated 944 million in losses for retailers over a 3 weeks of time, which is huge. On November 15, 2023, a team UCC launched a cyber attack on a Clean Fleet Report, a website dedicated to clean fleet industry. And then additionally, there is a Phoenix Rebound announced a DDoS attack targeting a major player in the automotive and aviation sectors. If we just focus on the specific automotive industry incidents, on August of 30 of 2023, a car dealer in Iceland was the target of the cyber attack. A hacker remotely disabled a Jeep vehicle on a highway. A ransomware attack on a Honda's global operation. A ransomware attack on a Nissan's and Renault's global operations. An attempted cyber attack on the Toyota Australia. A wireless key fob manipulation, which is vulnerabilizing the charging infrastructure and vehicle-to-vehicle communication cyber attacks. So this is huge. Look at all these statistics. This is really a time where there is a really a collaboration required between suppliers, manufacturers, regulators, and industry to come up with a solution. How do we stop this and how do we avoid that for the future? There is another which is getting now very broadly affected, which is an artificial intelligence, which introduce an unprecedented capabilities to threat actor and also security operations centers and their teams. The use of generative AI for nefarious purpose has become an increasingly popular topic on the dark web after the launch of ChatGPT. So there are already available large language models to identify the vulnerabilities on the ChatGPT. A simulate and standardized exploit tactics, methods, and processes are readily available. APIs are a process target for a Gen AI attacks due to a public documentation, enabling a map endpoint. So vulnerability and lows are really very high with this artificial intelligence technology. So what's happening in automotive industry related to the cybersecurity? So I think we talked about, Dr. Joshi also mentioned about regulatory framework. So regulatory fatigue and landscape is becoming overwhelming complex. Global regulations vary according to the country, region, global initiatives often creating overlap and conflicts. There is already an existing regulation, UNEC R155, and right now in process of creating another amendment to those regulation, which is expected to expand the framework of the vulnerability. And then regulation coming up in China, Korea, and India as well. I also mentioned about generative AI emerge as a double-edged sword. Security operation centers and teams are expected to incorporate AI-based tools to support agile ops and combat emerging threat vectors. Rapid EV adoption, expand cyber risk and driver regulations, expand cyber posture to cover Internet of Things protocols, standards and regulations driving additional regulations. A digital transportation transformation will continue to introduce a large-scale attacks and which is expanding the security operations centers covering to monitor API threats. So just changing gears to the regulatory framework, these are all the background, like why cybersecurity is so important to the automotive industries. And then let's talk about what is really importance of the regulation. So again, I think we talk about cybersecurity, but cybersecurity and software update regulation go hand on hand. There is a need of cybersecurity regulation based on all those data and statistics, because more and more vehicles are becoming connected vehicles. Requirement to update software on vehicle during the whole vehicle life. Vehicle manufacturer makes software updates, including the over-the-air, in order to add new functions. For an example, ADAS function on already registered vehicles. There's going to be a technology trend in the future where there is a subscription based feature where anyone can buy a feature for a month just to understand, to get the feeling that are they finding benefit of using that feature or not, and then they may decide that I would like to continue with this feature or not, in which manufacturers can update that feature by over the air. Managing vehicle cybersecurity and securing vehicles by design to mitigate the risk along the value chain, and then detecting and responding to the security incidents across the vehicle fleet are really important. Those are the needs. So, what would be the objective of the regulation? The objective of the regulation would be to ensure that the software on a vehicle is and stays compliant with vehicle approval. The connectivity and automation of vehicle increases the possibility of unauthorized remote access in the vehicle data and illegal modification of software over the air. Ensure guidelines to a systematic risk-based approach, defining organization processes, responsibilities, and governance to treat risk associated with cyber threats to vehicle and protect them from cyber attacks. Demonstration of vehicle manufacturer processes used within their cybersecurity management system, ensuring security is adequately considered, including risk and their mitigations. So those are the need and objective of those cybersecurity regulation. I think Dr. Joshi already mentioned about complexity of the regulation. There are already a lot of regulation available. ISO 21434, UNEC 155, GTR, which is already in process. NISA cybersecurity best practices, Auto ISAC, which is an industry-driven community for the cyber best practices. The NIST, which is again a US National Vulnerability Database for cyber and software. ISO 26262, which is a functional safety for automotive electrical systems. ISO 21448, which is safety of intended functionality of automotive. Another ISO, which is guideline for auditing cybersecurity engineering for automotive. There is a GB China regulation, which is referencing the UNEC R155, a Korea cybersecurity regulation, Canada vehicle cybersecurity regulation. There is an Anatel Act from the Brazil regulators. Brazil is also adopting the UNECR 155. There is an Uzbekistan cybersecurity regulation for critical infrastructure. And then India also is coming with the draft AS 189, which I think we already talked about it. But what we as an automotive manufacturer and the regulators are making sure that these all of these regulations should be harmonized globally, to make sure that we collaborate with each of our partners and countries to make sure that how do we share best practices with each other to make sure we are compliant as a whole industry. ISO and 1998 agreements are intended to be neutral of a regulatory requirement specific. However, the requirements are very much aligned to all of the UNECR 155, and my understanding at India regulation as well is very much aligned to this UNECR 155 regulation. I think this is just a visual of globally wherever you can see the green dot where the cybersecurity regulations are already applicable. And then purple one, we can see there is an estimated enforcement date of adopting those regulation. And then a lot of other regions are in process of adopting the similar regulation, including India. And there are a lot of other discussions going on that how do we make sure that all of this regulation across the globe are using the same language and same approach across the globe. If you look at the detail of the cybersecurity regulation, what is it all talking about? It is basically talking about two things. One is the cybersecurity management system, how at a manufacturer, how manufacturer manage the cybersecurity. And when it comes to an architectural level at a vehicle, like vehicle will have an electrical architecture, how do we make sure that do we need to assess only one architecture, only one vehicle? When we have a multiple vehicle, multiple architecture, how are we going to manage the design of the vehicle architecture, which is including the risk assessment and implementation of all those mitigations? Regulation really covers management system definition, as I mentioned, which is a systematic risk-based approach, defining organization processes, responsibilities, and governance to treat risk associated with the cyber threats to the vehicle and protect them from the cyber attacks. It also covers process for managing cyber security, how you identify the risk, how you assess the risk, how you categorize the risk, how you treat the risk, verifying appropriate risk management processes, testing of your securities, doing pen testing, for an example. How do you make sure intrusion detection system? How do you make sure in the event of the vulnerabilities, how your systems are protected? Keeping assessment of risk and also an effectiveness of measure up to date, continuous monitoring, analysis, and detection of the cyber threats, vulnerability, and cyber attacks. And then how do we respond if there is a type cyber attacks within a reasonable time frame to the customer and also to the government agencies? This is also covering a major part of your supplier dependencies. I think Dr. Joshi also mentioned that we have to make sure that not only the vehicle manufacturer, but how are we making sure that our suppliers are also up to date and making sure about all the cybersecurity requirement into their components. Supplier also needs to have a cybersecurity management system at their end. There would be entire life cycle, which is from the development, production, and post-production perspective. And then when it comes to getting a type approval of the vehicle, the type definition is determined by any of the cyber relevant component associated with essential aspect of electrical architecture to the vehicle. There are a couple of scenarios needs to be considered. Like there would be a question about, okay, I got the approval based on the regulation. Now there are changes in my system. For an example, I'm changing my electrical architecture. I'm developing a new architecture. I'm creating a new controller. I'm sourcing a new supplier. So there are a lot of guidelines are given in this regulation. This is one of the regulation. I'm not sure when India will release the AS 189, but when the UNECR 155 regulation was released, the regulation itself is 30 pages. However, there are 150 pages of the interpretation of the requirement has been released along with that. So this is really a complex regulation, and there is a lot of efforts required to get a compliance of this regulation. What do we need to do? Once we have the regulation, we know about the statistics about the security events. Now, how do we prevent that? So basically, there is a multi-layer approach to the cybersecurity by focusing on a vehicle entry points, both the wireless and wired. I think there are a lot of systems right now. Every manufacturers are using either update their vehicle by wired or wireless through the over-the-air software, which could be a potential vulnerabilities to the cyber attacks. A layer approach to vehicle cybersecurity will reduce the possibility of a successful cyber attacks and mitigates the potential consequence of a successful intrusion. A comprehensive and systematic approach to developing a layer cybersecurity protection for vehicle, which includes a risk-based prioritized identification and protection process for safety critical control system in your vehicle, timely detection and rapid response to the potential vehicle cybersecurity incidents, architectures, methods, and measures that design in cyber resiliency and facilitate the rapid recovery from incidents when they occur, and then methods for effective intelligence and information sharing across the industry, which is really important, which facilitate the quick adoption of industry-wide lesson learned. I think this is really important. That's where the collaboration is really important. And I think, as I mentioned, to be a compliant, what needs to happen at either a supplier level or a manufacturer level or tier one and tier two? It's like we have to ensure the requirement of cybersecurity is captured from the beginning of your design of your architecture. The requirement, what are the system requirement, how the system is designed, how the software requirement are analyzed, your system integration, your system, how it tests, whether it developed by the OEM or it developed by the suppliers. And then ultimately it's the hardware and software needs to be married with each other to make sure that it is a comprehensive cybersecurity requirement has been considered in both of the part, like either a software or a hardware. I think we already mentioned about the cybersecurity development lifecycle. It's not just like just create a requirements and then leave it. It is like a system development for a life cycle of a vehicle, right? A development phase, a production phase, and then the post-production phase. So when it comes to a system design, ensure that the requirements are appropriately considered, allocate requirements and mapping of those requirements with systems, implement those requirements, execute those requirements, and make sure that the codes are scanned and penetration testing has been done, validate those requirements. And after even validation, after launch of those programs and those softwares, make sure that you conduct the regularly monitoring all those vulnerability management and incident response on the vehicles, for an example. I think I already mentioned about ISO, which is SAE 21434. One of the important aspect of this regulation is considerable, which I will really ask everyone to consider, which is the attack path analysis. How do we make sure when there is a threat analysis and how we assess those risks associated with threats? So as I mentioned that all these regulations go hand by hand, but basically we as a manufacturer have to ensure how the attack path analysis has been analyzed. There are publicly available information, which is attack-based pathology by Mitre, AT&T, which is a globally accessible knowledge-based database of adversary tactics and techniques based on the real-world observations. AT&T and CK knowledge base is used as a foundation for the development of a specific models and methodologies in the private sectors, in government, and also in the cybersecurity product and service community. With the creation of this organization, it is fulfilling its mission to solve problems for a safer world by bringing communities together to develop more effective cybersecurity. And this is an open available to any person or any organization to use it at a no charge. So, which is really important if anyone wants to use this. I've attached a link to this organization as well here. Now, I think we talked about where this market is going now. We know that there are a lot of software, a lot of ADAS, a lot of infotainment, EVs, PEVs, personal autonomous vehicles are coming up. Where does it go from here? So if you look at the market size in 2020, the market size was 4.9 billion. All of these figures are in US dollars and in billions. In calendar year of 2025, it grows up to the 8.4 billion, and then it is expected to grow 9.7 billion by 2030, which means the software development market is expected to reach US dollar 5.3 billion by 2030, which is driven by all of the ADAS feature, all the new technologies, number of ECUs, AVs, LiDARs, radars, cameras, sensor, which we introduce into our vehicles. At the same time, cybersecurity processes and solution market is mainly driven by software tracking, and there is a strong need for growth of cybersecurity software and security operations centers at every global centers in every OEM, whether it is a vehicle manufacturer or a component manufacturer. So from here, what are we looking at? For an example, let's say as a cybersecurity, as I mentioned in all of my previous slides, and also Mr. Dr. Joshi has also mentioned that a cybersecurity has already gained the attention of automotive companies, and it will trigger a paradigm shift as companies needs to start now to address customer demands, meet a quality expectations, manage increasing cyber risk, and also before compliance with automotive cybersecurity regulation on cybersecurity and software updates. This required a rethinking of cybersecurity and new working practice along with the value chain. Cybersecurity will become non-negotiable, and this trend creates an opportunity for all players to either differentiate themselves with any of the new offering and see how this industry grows from now here. So I think those are my slide. I have a couple of backup slide just to show you that how this, if we have to get a type approval for an example based on the cybersecurity regulation. I'm just using an example right now, which is a UNEC R155. So four major players are involved: manufacturer, a technical service, a type approval authority, and whole vehicle type approval. So first of all, a manufacturer has to submit their cybersecurity management system certificate of conformity to the type approval authority, and then they will issue a COC certificate, which is valid for 3 years. And then once we get that certificate, the model information document along with the sample vehicle for the testing needs to be submitted, which will be verified by the authorities. And then once satisfactory, they will issue a type approval. Once we get the individual component approval, which individual system approval, which is R155, there is a need to incorporate that into the whole vehicle type approval. That's how you can enter into the European market. And then that's how we get the whole vehicle type approval. And at the end, there is a conformity of production requirement as well, which is also frequency of the COPs once in every 3 years. There are some cybersecurity education and resources I have referenced here. If you really want to get a strong breadth of knowledge in cybersecurity, I would recommend to take a CISSP course from ISC. CISSP refers to the Certified Information Security System Professional, which is a globally recognized certification for information security professional. It is offered by ISC, which is an international information cybersecurity system consortium. There are also a couple of courses available from Stanford University, which is an advanced cybersecurity course. Couple of collaborative information about the cyber attacks are available in the on the Mitre website. There is also an Automotive ISAC website where all the collaborative cybersecurity efforts are stored there, and you can even use those database. And in US, the NHTSA has also released the best practices for the cybersecurity for the new vehicles, which are really important to consider for every manufacturer and also these component manufacturers. So what is really important based on the cybersecurity incidents, the impact on the industry, the need for regulation, and to get compliant of that, a people, a process, and technology to enable regulatory compliance is really important. Ensuring from the people's perspective that optimizing organization to enable the holistic cybersecurity and software update management system throughout the development of their product, which include the production and also the post-production life cycle. There needs to be a requirement to update or enable your existing processes to scalable compliant of this requirement. And then a new technology is really necessary to support quality, repeatability, and timeliness and scalability of this type of approvals. So these are really important when anyone really looking at getting a compliance of these regulations and make sure that there are no vulnerabilities associated with their products and components. So I think that's all from my side. I'll just stop sharing my screen and then I think Ankit, over to you.
Thank you, Ronak. That was really insightful. I would say, you took us to the entire gambit of what cybersecurity entails and how important it is for the automotive domain, and then what are the pathways, how we go about doing the compliance. Really, this was enriching for me, and I'm sure for all our participants. So I believe we now have time for some question and answers. So I would request if in case there are any questions, our participants, they can post it in the Q&A or the chat sections, and we can take it up with our expert speakers. Or maybe you can raise your hands and we can allow you to speak as well. So either way, whatever works for our participants. Yes, I think we have one question from Mr. Sonu Sudrania. You can unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. So my question is related to Indian scenario for cybersecurity. Since the scenario for India will be a very different, because since in terms of the data, the number of people available, and the data will be very huge. And since the payment gateways and other things which are getting used in India are different from other countries, so will our cybersecurity structure for cybersecurity will be different from other countries, or it will be the standard or the regulation will be same for the entire world? Means in Indian scenario, it will be different, as we are talking in ADAS that the Indian scenario at us will be little different from the other countries since we have a different altogether infrastructures as compared to. Similarly, it will be happening in the cyber security also, or it will be remaining the same.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure, Dr. Joshi, would you like to answer that question or you would like me to answer that question? So let me go ahead and answer your question. Uh, Basically, if you look at the differences in the global regulation, majority of the Indian regulations are a carryover from the UNEC regulations. So when it comes to regulation, the requirements are 90% are exactly the same, with some chances of having some unique local requirement which will be different based on the privacy data act and then how the approval authorities really want to manage those regulation. But it doesn't make any difference where the ADAS system between the global versus the Indian system will be the different or not. ADAS system is the ADAS system. It vary from level 1 to level 2 to level 3 to level 4 and level 5. However, there is no difference when it comes to the cybersecurity requirement. Requirements are remaining same globally.
Okay, I think that answers it, Ronak. Um, Anyone else? Yeah, we got one question from Mohit. He's asking, Ronak, again, I think this is aimed for you. The difference between Cyber Security Resilience Act and UN regulation, and are they entirely different?
Definitely, they're entirely different because if you look at the UN, which is the Cybersecurity Resilience Act, this is a proposed piece of legislation right now for European Union. When you look at UNECE regulation, which is a United Nations, which is different. So European Union has adopted United Nations regulation, which means UNECE is a United Nation regulation. And then once UNEC regulations are there, all the contracting parties of 1958 and 1998 agreement can adopt that regulation. Whereas Europe is particularly coming up with the Cyber Security Resilience Act, which is not focused only on the automotive, whereas UN regulations are only focused on the automotive. The main aim of this Cyber Resiliency Act is not only automotive in Europe, it is also focusing on the energy sector, the transportation sector, the health sector, the finance sector, the IT industry sector, and a lot more broader aspect of the scope for the Cybersecurity Resilience Act in the UN.
Uh, okay, Ronak, I think that was good. We've got one more question coming in that what is data security or security requirements from the regulatory body side, and will they be collecting the type approval data from the OEs? I'm not sure if this is aimed at any specific regulation, but maybe you can answer this in perspective of the UN regulation itself.
Well, if we just talk about the data security requirement from the regulatory perspective, the regulatory body is not asking manufacturers to provide every single sets of the data to the approving authority. The intent of this regulation is to understand holistically what approaches, what processes manufacturer has in their place to make sure that they're basically ensuring and managing the cybersecurity at their end. There is really not necessary that we as a OEM share every single information to the regulatory bodies. But as and when there is a vulnerability, there is an attack, then only it is required to share with them what was the attack scenario, what happened, what action we manufacturer has taken. So it's like a case to case basis. The manufacturer will be asked by the approval authority or regulatory bodies that show me an example of your validation testing. What happens when you have a dual memory of the ECU, and when software get failed during the update, what will happen? Can attack vector can hack those ECU and start updating their own software files rather than the actual files released by the server? So those kind of specific cases needs to be realized and asked by the manufacturer. But I don't think the aspect of the regulation is to share every single information to the approval authority and the regulatory bodies.
Great. I think that answered our next question also. There was a question again from Deepesh, who was asking that for WVTA, the conformity certificate will be issued based on the model or based on the CSMS system implementation by the OE. So I believe that that answered this question as well.
No, I think there's a little bit difference of that question. Basically, when you, I think I mentioned about the COC certificate. The COC certificate is based on your architecture. It's not based on your model. You may have one architecture and using that architecture for multiple models. I don't know what kind of example I can use considering the Indian automotive sector. For an example, if I have a X architecture, so I would have to get an COC for that architecture. But using that COC, which is valid for 3 years, I can use those CSMS COCs for my multiple vehicles program, such as vehicle produced by same manufacturer. Basically, this is really important. Like within the scope of Tata, for an example, they can use the same approval for all their vehicles using that architecture, but they cannot be used by other manufacturer, cannot be used by other architecture as well. So that would be the really important of COC and the vehicle type approval.
Okay, I think we have one last question because I don't see anyone after this. Why the onus is on the supplier side and not the OE for cyber security? I don't know what they mean by supplier side. I believe it refers to the tier one.
Yeah, I think it's not, the onus is not on the supplier. The onus, if I understand the question correctly, the responsibility of cybersecurity is the vehicle manufacturer. However, internally, vehicle manufacturer will work with the suppliers to make sure supplier also have a processes in place to make sure how they are managing their own cybersecurity. So, for an example, if supplier has to be selected by any manufacturer, XYZ automobile manufacturer will ask that supplier that show me evidence of your cybersecurity management process. And if a supplier does not have that, why do you think that manufacturer will select those suppliers as their supplier to supply their software or hardware? So it's not an onus on supplier. It is a equal responsibility by manufacturers and the suppliers.
Yeah, so they're equally responsible in the process, but as a manufacturer, while selecting the supplier, it would be something which goes off as a quality gate, I believe. Uh, there's one more question coming in, Ronak. For each software update, OEM or the component manufacturers, do we have to acquire an extension from the testing agency? This comes
And
from
this is
Dhanraj.
this is a really great question. Well, it really depends what kind of software update it is. If I use an example of a software update where if I talked about ICE vehicle, which is the gasoline vehicle, for an example, if I'm changing a software of the ECU and that software change is impacting the exhaust emissions and the fuel economy, then definitely I have to get an extension for that. Otherwise, I can't get the software change without getting an extension, because your declared ECU part number and your model information info document will also change every time when there is a software change. I'm just using an example right now, but think about it. A lot of systems right now is driven by the software, and once you update the software, there needs to be a process within the manufacturer to assess the impact of those software changes on all applicable regulation, to understand that does that software change affect which of the system, which of the performance of the vehicle. Is it, am I adding a feature, am I deleting the feature, am I enabling the subscription based feature, what's changing, how that change is affecting the performance of the vehicle. And depending upon that, I think manufacturer has to present a case to the type approval authority whether you think as a manufacturer that do I really need to get an approval for this change, or I do not think that my software change will impact the performance of the vehicle, and that's why I don't need to get an extension approval.
Okay, I believe we've got two more questions, Ronak. We have time to take them, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so I'm because I don't want to keep you. It's late at your time. So we'll take two last questions. First is the final version of AIS 189 190 is published and available in the IISc portal. Okay, this is again for information that they've given. This is not nothing we are asking. There's the last question here is what are the suggestions to achieve the compliance to CSMS without increasing the cost of vehicles? Again, interesting from your point of view.
And this is also one of the other great question. I don't think the compliance has anything to do with the cost of the vehicle. Uh, the compliance cost is really what regulation really wants to understand is that what kind of processes manufacturers has to ensure that you are appropriately taking your due diligence. It's not adding any cost associated with that basically. And again, as I mentioned, like it again depend what are your attack vector. Are you looking at a particular supplier where supplier has not considered appropriate cybersecurity requirement, and now because we have to comply with this requirement, you went back to your supplier and asked them that do you comply with this or not? And let's say for an example supplier says no, then question is that do you want to continue with that supplier, or supplier will say okay, with any cost I will meet those regulatory requirements, but I really want to continue my business with you, for an example. So basically this compliance, the regulations are not to increase the cost of the vehicle, it's to ensure the safety of the consumer data, the driver and the vehicle is protected. It is not adding anything cost to the vehicle right now. It again depends. Maybe a manufacturer may not have a cybersecurity compliance component. In that case, it may add additional cost. But then majority of the big OEMs, my understanding is all of them has a very good processes right now, except just getting a compliance perspective to make sure that they have a right processes in place to make sure that they're evaluating their systems, their processes, and the supplier processes to make sure that they are cyber compliant.
Thank you very much for that, Ronak. I think we'll close it here. We don't see any more questions, and also like we would be taking further. This was just the first session, and given the interest that we've had, I'm sure we're going to take it further in the series of cybersecurity, it being such a new topic. So, Ronak, thank you so much for the insightful session, and I'm sure we're all leaving much more enriched than we were. And thank you, Dr. Joshi, for setting the tone. So that was really, giving us all a perspective. I believe Sogata sir is here on the call, so maybe if you want to give the closing remarks, and then we can end the session. It's late night for Ronak already.
So, thank you, Ronak, for giving a wonderful lecture, which is certainly enriching for all of us, those who are participants. And I thank Dr. Joshi for his opening remarks and setting the tone for the webinar. And to the participants, if you have any further questions, you have our email ID. You can still communicate to Ankit or myself, and so that we can satisfy your queries going forward. So thank you once again for your time and joining this session early in the morning. And this is certainly encouraging for all of us. And we'll continue such knowledge share session in the initiative of Aspire from ICAT. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Ronak. Bye-bye. Have a nice day. Have a good evening for you. Bye.